Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Olivia if you are new here, and if you are not, then hey, again, thanks for coming back. If you are new, make sure to subscribe and then give me a big fat thumbs up, hit the like button, because I post like a bunch of lifestyle, health and fitness, self-development type content. Obviously today is like a more health and fitness style video. So if that interests you, make sure to subscribe. Anyways, today I'm doing a video all about like common health and fitness myths that you might have heard about, common misconceptions, stuff like that. I do want to give a disclaimer. I am not like, I guess I'm a little bit professional, but I'm not like a registered dietitian, nutritionist, anything like that. I'm not a doctor. I'm gonna be a doctor, so that's kind of hype. But I do have a degree in exercise science. That is what I got my bachelor's degree in. So while I don't know everything, I do know some stuff. So I have, how many do I have? I have my little notes right here. I have 5 common myths that you might have heard about, and they are nutrition based, like wellness based, fitness based, all that stuff. And I'm gonna kind of go like back and forth between more like health nutrition based and like fitness based, and I have a bunch more that I kind of want to talk about. So if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If this video gets, I'm probably gonna make the video anyway, so it doesn't even matter, but let's just say that if this video gets 50 thumbs up, then I will do a part 2 to this video with other common like health and fitness myths. I literally can't say that. The first thing I'm going to talk about is intermittent fasting. You probably heard about intermittent fasting before. It's not a new thing by any means. Fasting isn't new at all, but this kind of like trend of intermittent fasting has become decently popular within the past few years. So I want to talk about it because there's a lot of, claims that it has and that it makes, and I don't think people know all of them. Or I guess they know a lot of the claims, but they just don't know how it works, how their body might respond to it, all that. So I'm gonna get into that. You might have guessed that like the way humans developed, like food was scarce in some circumstances, obviously. Like there wasn't Trader Joe's on every corner, and you didn't get like Whole Foods delivery with your Amazon Prime account. So humans developed like adaptations to not being in constant fed states. They were able to function at a high level, both cognitively and physically. So there's a few things that happen to and in our bodies when we're in fasted states, and so I wanted to touch on them. The first one being insulin. So insulin in our body increases when we are fed, and then when we're in fasted states, our insulin levels dramatically like decrease. And so decreased levels of insulin have to do with burning fat, and they facilitate that fat burning. And I forgot to mention, I'm gonna like link a bunch of like studies and stuff like in the description box, along with like what kind of I'm talking about, so you can like look at them if you want to, and I'm not just like this is science. So the second thing is HGH, which is human growth hormone. And when you're in a fasted state, human growth hormone increases in its secretion rate, and human growth hormone is also said to help fat oxidation and fat burning, which is kind of like the same thing when I say fat oxidation and fat burning. So when you're in that fasted state, human growth hormone secretion rate actually increases, and again, that aids in fat oxidation or that fat burning, and increase in muscle mass and strength gains. A bunch of stuff actually occurs when you have an increase of HGH in your system. The last thing about intermittent fasting that I kind of wanted to say is that it increases norepinephrine, which is, so epinephrine is like adrenaline, which you've probably heard of, and noradrenaline or norepinephrine is like kind of the opposite of that. So when you're in fasted states, the nervous system sends norepinephrine or noradrenaline to the fat cells, and it makes them break down body fat a little bit quicker. In another, a very obvious reason that intermittent fasting can relate to fat loss is that you just have a smaller window to eat. So naturally you're just going to eat less calories, and weight loss and fat loss is all about like caloric deficit and making sure that you're expending more calories than you're consuming. So if you're eating less, you're probably going to be burning more fat or just losing more weight in general. So again, like I mentioned, there's actually a lot of science to back up the benefits of intermittent fasting. Personally, I mean, I would love to do intermittent fasting. I don't think it would work great with the schedule I'm on right now. The common, feeding and fasted times for intermittent fasting as it's seen now is like the 16-8 method. So you have an 8-hour feeding window and a 16-hour like fasted window. There's also like a bunch of other fasts. You can do like a 24 hours like of fasting, and then the next 24 hours you're in a fed state. So just like kind of day on and day off fasting. But again, there's a lot of science to back up intermittent fasting. So the next big fitness myth that I want to touch on is spot reduction. Yeah, it's not a thing. So like constantly you will hear people just be like, I just want to like lose this fat right here, or just like in your midsection or like wherever it is. And so people do like a lot of arms to like tone up their arms, or like lose the fat around their arms, or a bunch of crunches because they have a lot of like belly fat. You're not getting there. Sorry. So weight loss requires being in a negative energy balance, which means that you have to be expending more calories than you're consuming. I think I just mentioned that. You're also not able to pick and choose where you want to lose your fat. So again, if you do just like a bunch of crunches, like don't expect like just for your belly fat to disappear, because it's not gonna happen. Sorry. I literally wish it would, but it doesn't work like that. So when you're in that caloric deficit and you're losing that weight, it all the time isn't just fat like you would want it to be. Again, like kind of sucks, but it is what it is. When you're losing weight, it can come in the form of fat. It comes in the form of decreased muscle mass, decreased bone density. So that being said, it's super important while you are on a weight loss journey to also include things like resistance training to keep and maintain what muscle mass you have, and to try to increase your bone density with like proper diet and again resistance training, because when you're resistance training, when that muscle is pulling on those bones, that bone density can actually increase and keep your bones healthy and strong, especially as you age. That's a really big thing, and especially for women too, because we're, as women, just kind of like more likely to get things like osteoporosis. Next, I'm going to talk about the keto diet. I have some issues with this, if you couldn't just tell from my like dramatic sigh. And it's not, that sounds bad. The keto diet is not all bad, and it's not all just like pseudoscience either. But it's not always done properly. So actually the keto diet was developed for epileptic people, and specifically children. Doctors in like the 1920s, I think I read, they found that a very high fat diet reduced the likelihood of seizures in epileptic children, and they really don't know why that happened, but it did. So traditionally a keto diet has you consuming under or just at 50 grams of carbs per day, and that varies per person, but that is kind of the standard, only 50 carbs per day, which is not a lot, like at all. Like it's a very minimal amount of carbs in your diet for the day. So the basic premise or the principle of the keto diet is that when your carb intake is too low, your body relies on stored fat for energy. So it's kind of a pretty simple concept. But carbohydrates are the main source of energy for your body. That's what they want to use first. And so when you deplete your body of carbs, it kind of relies on fat to burn for energy instead. But when you are burning that fat instead of carbs, it results in a buildup of ketones, and then your body can go into a state of ketosis. And just kind of like a warning, if so ketones are actually like an acidic substance, and when it goes into your blood, if there's too much of these like acidic ketones in your blood, you can actually develop something called ketoacidosis, which I'm sure you might have heard of. So it's very common in diabetic people, I'm sure you might have heard of it before, but that is something to be careful of. It doesn't happen to everyone, obviously, but if you're kind of in that special population of like being diabetic or have some other like sort of insulin resistance, ketoacidosis on the keto diet can be very likely for you. So if you're someone who's like not really overweight or obese and you're just kind of like looking to increase performance in the gym, the keto diet is definitely not for you, because like I mentioned before, carbohydrates are your main source of energy, what your body wants to use. If you're looking specifically for sport performance or like gym performance, keto diet will not work well for you. And there are a few studies that I've seen, and just like in general, there's not like a huge amount of studies about the keto diet for weight loss necessarily. I mean, there are, but there's not super long-term studies, because a lot of the studies show short-term weight loss for the keto diet in comparison to like a normal balanced diet. The keto diet has shown to have an initial amount of like more weight loss, but over an extended period of time, it kind of just like trails off. It doesn't really keep giving you that large amount of weight loss between the two diets. And most of the like weight loss initially on the keto diet is just water weight, so it's not actual fat that's being burned. It's just like your water weight shedding off, which is like good. It's still like, you know, weight loss, but there's kind of like a lot of hype when you see those first like few pounds drop off, and it's really not even fat, it's just water. I will say that the keto diet is a much more satiating diet because it's so high in fat. So fat, carbohydrates, and proteins are the three major like macronutrients. Both carbs and protein have 4 calories per gram of that macronutrient, whereas fat has 9 calories per gram of that macronutrient. So it is a lot more satiating diet. So in one study that, again, I'll link down below, it reported that the dieters could eat fewer calories and still remain, these people were on the keto diet, I should mention, but it mentioned that the dieters were able to remain more satiated with a little bit fewer calorie count than someone on a normal diet. So I guess that's a good thing. But the issue that I have with it is that a lot of people on the keto diet, I just remember, story time really quick. I was in a class one time, an anatomy lab, and this girl, we had a quiz that day, and this girl was just like dead, like bags under her eyes, just like really just wasn't looking good. And I was like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And she was like, yeah, I'm like dieting right now, and I'm just like kind of getting used to it. And I was like, oh, like, what are you doing? And she was like, I'm on the keto diet. And I was like, okay. And I asked her how many like grams of carbs she was eating and like how she, you know, came to figure that out. She was eating literally 25 grams of carbs per day, and she said that she Googled it, and that's how much Google told her to eat. So, and that's bad. But she literally like had no energy. She was tired, couldn't focus at all. And that's probably one example of someone who isn't doing the keto diet properly. So a lot of people on the keto diet will eat a lot of like fatty red meats, things that are higher in sodium, which is obviously just traditionally not healthy for you. And they're thinking that's okay because it's high fat and very low carb. But again, that has other risks to it, like the fatty red meat can increase your cholesterol levels and make you more susceptible to things like cardiovascular disease, just a slew of things that you don't want. So if you are doing the keto diet, I would really recommend that you eat sources of fat that are more complex, that are very nutritionally dense, so that you're not just relying on like pork roast and hamburgers and stuff like that. The next myth is all about the fat burning zone. So what a lot of people perceive that is that they have to stay in that certain heart rate range while they're exercising in order to be burning fat. And that is just not the case. I will say there are certain exercise intensities that do use fat more than carbohydrates, which are again that like first line of defense for burning energy for your body to use. So if you're doing steady state cardio for like a very extended amount of time, like marathons, like very long long bike races, like things like that, your body will it will deplete its, carbohydrates and glycogen stores and start using the fat that is stored in your body. But if you're just on the treadmill for like a 15-minute jog, so does that mean you should only do steady state cardio if you're trying to lose weight or burn fat? The answer is no. So there's this thing called EPOC, which is excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. So EPOC is kind of that like exercise science word for that afterburn that occurs when you're doing things like HIIT training, resistance training, or weightlifting, whatever you want to call it. Those more like higher intensity exercises will have you burning calories longer after you finish the exercise, whereas steady state cardio doesn't have you doing that. The fat oxidation or fat burning can occur more during the steady state cardio, but that afterburn effect is not as long when you're doing the steady state cardio versus when you're doing something like HIIT or resistance training. So my personal recommendation would be to kind of get a good mix in of steady state cardio, resistance training, just so you can kind of optimize your fat burning potential. And again, like I talked about, just doing a huge amount of cardio will not be the best for you, because when you're losing weight, you're losing it from everywhere: bone density, muscle mass, fat loss, all that stuff. So you want to be able to maintain your bone density and muscle mass still. So I think it's really important to do kind of a mix of a bunch of different aerobic and anaerobic exercises. Anaerobic being like weight training, aerobic being cardio or steady state. Lastly, we are talking about air drums, food combining. Okay, listen. So, confession time, I actually did food combining for probably like 2 months maybe. And it was okay. If you don't know what food combining is, you probably haven't been on the internet for the last several months, because it's like all that's been talked about, at least in like the spaces I've been in. So if you don't know what food combining is, it's essentially the practice of combining certain types of food in the attempts to have them better digest in your system, to avoid things like gas, bloating, indigestion, stuff like that. So the idea behind it is that different foods require different pH levels in the gut in order to digest properly, which is true. It also says that different foods have different like transit times in the GI tract, in that eating foods that don't combine well won't allow for proper digestion or getting all the nutrients that you're eating in your food. There is little to no research on food combining, which should be noted. The reason that I think like a lot of people had success, I want to say, with food combining is because they're just like making healthier choices. So the girl that really promoted like a lot of like food combining content, her name's Kenzie Burke, and you have probably heard of her. I'm not like trying to come for you if you're into food combining. I'm just literally, this is like science. So, but she actually had like, just based on the things she was eating, a very clean, whole food kind of diet, which she promoted to her followers, which is awesome. So that is great. We love clean eating. So if you're going from like eating a bowl of cereal, like Reese's Puffs, oh my god, Reese's Puffs sounds so good. Like if you're not eating like super clean, great food, if you're going out like having fried food every day for dinner, like, whatever. And then you go to food combining and are eating a lot of like nutritionally dense whole foods, like like you're gonna feel better, you're gonna like see less bloating, all that stuff. There's gonna be a lot less inflammation in your system when you're eating clean whole foods. And on food combining, you're probably like just naturally eating less because you're only allowed to eat one thing at a time. The whole thing about like the trendy version of food combining is that you need to eat sequentially, or like things will get like backed up in your system and then like it will just rot in your GI tract and you will bloat and fart. So the way that like the GI tract, the digestive system works is that like different parts of your food, well, one, like foods have like more than just one macronutrient in them. There's usually like a combination of a bunch of different things. So there's one flaw with that. But two, there's different enzymes and hormones that like act on your digestive system when any food is introduced to your GI tract. But like fruit as a carb was suggested to be eaten in the morning. And naturally carbohydrates digest better in alkaline environments, which is like basic, but there's this thing called stomach acid. So it doesn't really matter what you eat, like stomach acid will automatically like act on the food that you're eating. Like you start to develop stomach acid when you just even smell food. So it really doesn't even matter what you're putting in your body, your stomach acid will act on it. There's different enzymes like lipase, amylase, and you can look all this stuff up, but that will act on different parts of the food, like I mentioned. So really just eating one type of thing won't really matter in the long run. But again, I do want to say that because I know there's probably a lot of people that have like dropped off of this like food combining diet, but there's still probably some people that are on it. That is fine. Like go ahead. But a lot of the reason that people have found like success on this diet is that they're just choosing and opting for more like nutritionally dense whole foods, which is great. But eating sequentially or this food combining doesn't change how much your food is digested. It just changes kind of like the gastric emptying rate at which your food is like emptying out of your GI tract. So I think that wraps up my health and fitness myth. I still can't say it. I think that wraps up the video. We'll just say that. If you are interested in seeing another video like this, again, thumbs up this video so I know. Leave me a comment down below telling me kind of what you want to hear about. I have some ideas for things that I want to talk about next, so stay tuned for that. But again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye everyone.